global parasitic system. The present global system is parasitic. A parasite is the one who takes from you and doesn't give back to you. We call that a parasite. So this system is parasitic. In the last 60 years, I have been involved in the struggle against this modern slavery for Africa. The curse of producing raw materials for cleverer people in the world to add value to those raw materials and get much more value from them. For the last 60 years and more, I have been involved in struggle against all this. Some years ago, a Western company came and proposed to mine the uranium. They came here, said they want to mine the uranium. I asked them, mine it and take it where? They said, export it. That was their answer. I asked them, export it for what purposes? They told me, you want to take the uranium, but have you had a rumor that there are some human beings here? It's not confirmed that they are there, but could it be a rumor that there are some human beings here, of our friends in the West? After that, after you have addressed my issue, I can also share with you so that you also go and solve yours. But to tell me that you solve my problems and forget yours, I cannot accept that. They never came back. They never came back. So the uranium of Uganda is sleeping in the ground until we are ready to use it. We have now agreed with the Russians and the Koreans to build 2 nuclear power stations for electricity of 15,600 megawatts total. Imagine, just 2 stations will produce 15,000 megawatts. One, 7,200 megawatts, the other one, 8,400 megawatts. Our biggest dam on the Nile is the Karuma with 640 megawatts. The hydro. The biggest opposition of our plan of building an integrated national economy has been mainly internal, from some elements of the political and bureaucratic classes who perform the role of comprador bourgeoisie, agents of foreign interests Mao Zedong talked about in China. I banned them. I'm not popular in some areas. But God is my savior. I'm not bothered. You have heard of the quarrels going on in Niger. There's a crisis now in an African country known as Niger. I think some of our friends from West Africa know it better, Togo and Cameroon, they know it better. You have heard of the quarrels going on in Niger, in West Africa, about uranium being taken to Europe. That's how I came to know recently. When this crisis started, we started getting information that apparently Niger is exporting a lot of uranium to Europe and to France for them to use in their nuclear power stations to generate electricity for themselves. So this morning I took interest. I said, by the way, what is the electricity supply in Niger? Before you sell uranium to the other person, how about you? What's happening to you? Now I found, I was told, there is a measurement they call kilowatt hour per capita. Kilowatt hour per capita. Apparently, the kilowatt hour per capita of electricity in Niger is 51. 51. Every person in Niger is using 51 kilowatt hour per capita. The GDP of Niger is $613. Now, here in Uganda, our kilowatt hour per capita was very low, was like this some years ago, was as low as this one of Niger. But now it's about 300, still very low, but that's where it is. Then how about the United States? What is the kilowatt hour per capita of the United States? 12,000. $12,000. And there's a country called Iceland. It has got a lot of electricity. Of course, they have got a small population, but it is 54,000. African economy is stunted. I had jumped this, very sorry, very sorry. That's why the economy of Africa is stunted. Somebody from stunted growth is somebody who can't grow. The GDP of the whole massive African continent, with a population now of about 1.5 billion people, is $2.7 trillion. What are the GDP sizes of other much smaller individual countries? Here below are some examples. USA, 25.5 trillion. Africa, 2.7 trillion. USA, 25 trillion. China, 17.9 trillion, almost 18 trillion. Japan, $4.2 trillion. Germany, $4 trillion. India, $3.38 trillion. Even little South Korea has a GDP of US dollars 1.7 trillion, nearing the size of the African GDP. It must be pointed out that even this US dollars 2.7 trillion is a recent development, because the African economies are said to be growing at a fast rate compared to others in the world. Otherwise, Africa's GDP was only 500 billion some few years ago. However, much of that growth may be quantitative, not qualitative, producing more and more raw materials. Sorry, I had jumped that page in the speech. Therefore, as I conclude, I was beginning to ask the question, if Africa gets more money from value-added products of its raw materials,